Hi, my name is Megan Wheeler, and this is my bio lab assignment, the video for lab 7. So what I'm going to be talking about is I'm going to be talking about the organism Hydra. So let me share my screen. Hopefully you can see me and the screen. I've never done this before. Okay. So I'm gonna be talking about the Hydra today. There are some cute little pictures of them. I think they look really cool. They're actually really, really small, like microscopic. So they're not like big, they're microscopic. So just have that in mind. Okay, so the organism Hydra. So you're mostly going to find the Hydra in freshwater ecosystems. So a lot of places that they have them these days. I'll discuss this later, but but most of the time you can find them in countries such as like South American countries, North American countries, Central America, Europe, and Asia. That's where you're going to mostly find it. They're part of the phylum of Synardia. I think I said that right. So that's a really big phylum, and there's lots of different types of hydras. But just like the main organism in general is part of this huge group, huge phylum, and then under the class Hydrozoa. And then this little picture is a picture we got from lab. So that's not something like I found on the internet. This is our lab photo, which I think was really cool. And I couldn't figure out how to get the video on there, but it's a little picture of them moving under the microscope. It was really cool. And a fun fact about them is that they can regenerate. So if you cut them in half or into like 5 different pieces, those little pieces become little other hydra organisms. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But let's keep going. So hydras, I kind of talked about this. Their habitat, freshwater systems, usually in the like inland, so not like anywhere close to like the ocean or anything like that, such as like lakes or rivers. These systems are usually it kind of varies. So hydras can live in a lot of different freshwater systems. They can either be really, really deep. So I think the most like they've seen hydras in is like 350 feet deep, or they can be in really, really shallow waters, and they can be stagnant or they can be like flowing waters. A lot of times I think when I was researching this, I think scientists see them a lot in like free flowing, like really fast waters, but you can see them in like stagnant waters. In these stagnant waters, a lot of times like there's a lot of pollutants in those waters, so that's why you wouldn't like normally see hydras in there, but you can see them if there's like lower levels of pollutants, because their bodies can't I'm sure a lot of animals can't withstand a whole lot of pollution, but one of the main things when I was researching that was pointed out over and over again is that their bodies can't withstand these high levels of pollution. And as I said earlier, in these freshwater systems, they're mostly in different in North and South America, Central America, Europe, and Asia. Okay, so the food resources of hydras, they're usually since they're very small, they're going to eat really small organisms. So a lot of that is like fish larvae, really small fishes, sometimes fish eggs, but I didn't put that on there, but that's not really as common. Very small crustaceans is what they'll eat. So like microscopic again. And one interesting thing I found about them is I didn't know hydras could sting their organisms to kill them, but they actually do. And that's one of the main reasons they do it, is just sting them and then make sure they die and they eat them. So I didn't know that, but I thought that was really interesting. The life cycle of the hydra. So if you look on this little graph, I don't know if you can see my little pointer, but this kind of shows the different parts of how hydras form. So what happens, first of all, most of them reproduce asexually. So you bud off of the organism and you have a new organism off the first one. But sometimes in certain environmental conditions, they can reproduce sexually. So what happens there is you have the female, they make the egg, and then the male has their sperm, and the sperm gets released from the male into the water. And so the sperm in the water meets the egg in the female hydra, and that's how the zygote is formed. And one interesting thing is that zygote actually becomes super hard and is released into the water. And then from there, as you can see right here, it says encapsulated embryo. So it starts to like grow from there. That's really interesting. Another fun fact is that a lot of studies have shown recently, this is one of the big things about hydra, is that they don't age. So there's no like, eventually they're going to die because of certain environmental conditions. They don't like live forever, but they don't age. So they can just keep reproducing as much as they not want to, or as much as before they die. basically. And which is really interesting because humans, like I know men can impregnate a woman for many, many years, almost until they die, unless they're infertile. But women, like at age 50, in humans, they can't during menopause, they can't reproduce anymore. So I just thought that was really interesting because they can just reproduce and reproduce and reproduce. And that's something that scientists thought were really interesting too, that they've been researching recently with hydras. So some of the unique traits, I've kind of already said it already. One of the big things is the way they sexually reproduce is just that hard zygote is really interesting and really different than other aquatic organisms. Budding is also something that's very unique to Hydra, even though other organisms do it. It's just something that's really unique to them because, like I said earlier, if you break them up in different parts, you can form new organisms. So that the regeneration of that and then like the fragmentation through that is really something that's really unique to Hydra. I said this earlier, but since they are not able to, or they don't really age, that's also one of the big things that makes them different from other organisms. And so I really don't know if you can see my pointer on this, but under the Synardia group, you can see the Hydra, they're right next to the jellyfish. And you can kind of see when they came about I think it says 660 million years ago, which is really interesting, just how old they are. Not old, but how ancient their species goes back to, which is really cool. One of the biggest importance of Hydra is even though they're super small, they help us to relate to other different groups. So Hydra, they prey on, like I said, small crustaceans, small fish larvae, everything like that. And so you have those fish larvae, and then you have the Hydra that consumes them. And then after that, you have other organisms that prey on them, such as, what did I say? Certain aquatic insects, bigger fish, and different crabs. So it's kind of interesting because for a while, I think when I was researching, and I have my resources cited, which I can show you later, but in those resources that I found, you can see that there was no relation between these two groups. And so a lot of scientists were like, well, what comes between? Because they're close to the bottom of the food chain, but we don't know what comes after them or what comes before them. Like we know organisms, but we don't know how they relate. And so that's one of the big things that scientists are figuring out is like how, oh, okay, so the hydras eat these different little larvae, and then fish eat them. So that's one of the biggest things, that their relationship between their prey and predators is one of the big highlighting factors of why hydras are actually important in these freshwater ecosystems. Okay, so that's it about Hydra. If you're really interested in this, at first I was like, this is not gonna be interesting, but hydras are actually really interesting once I got into it. So these resources I absolutely loved, and they were absolutely just very well thought out, and a lot of different researchers even say, like, to this day they're still discovering new things about hydra. So if you are interested like I am, I would go to these articles because they're really good. And then I have my citations for the images of the little hydra. So thank y'all so much for watching. Yeah, that's it. Okay, bye.